Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video here on Buffalo SportsCenter. I am Don, and today we are going to talk about a couple of potential free agent targets for the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, we're about a month away now from the beginning of free agency, a couple weeks away from the tampering period where teams get to talk to potential free agents. So I thought this was a good time, well out in advance, to get a rough list of all the rumors, of all the potential fits that I see here for the Sabres. And I believe that Kevin Adams will create a main focus. If he doesn't see such a good fit in the draft, he will go for defense. He will absolutely go for defense. And going into free agency this year, the Sabres have about $17 million in cap space. Of course, Kevin Adams doesn't want to commit too much of that to players right now, as he still will need to sign Rasmus Dahlin, and he'll need to fit guys like Casey Middlestat, Owen Power under the cap hit going into the next couple of seasons. So, with that in mind, let's get off with our first target here, and that is depth defenseman CARSON SOUCY of the Seattle Kraken. CARSON SOUCY, he's at a reasonable cap hit right now of $2.75 million per season, and he will, of course, be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. He would be a very, very good fit for the Sabres on the third pair next to Ilya Lyubushkin. Now, if this were to happen, I would definitely see the Sabres maybe trading Henri Jokiharju away, as Jokiharju has kind of been a disappointment since coming over in the Alex Nylander trade from Chicago a couple of seasons ago. SOUCY, he is 28 years old. He is in the middle of his prime right now, and you can see that with his stats. He hit career highs in goals, assists, and points this past season with the Kraken. He had 3 goals, 13 assists, and 18 or 16 points. I suck in math, folks. 16 points in 78 games played. So he's durable. He can add a little bit of a scoring touch, but I believe for the Sabres, they will put this left-handed defenseman. He can also play on the right side, but mainly on the left side. They can put this left-shot defenseman next to Lyubushkin, and they would have a very phenomenal bottom pairing. Let's keep on moving now, folks, by talking about our next pick. And I've been mentioning this name for a couple of months, I feel. Every time someone asks me, Don, who do you think the Sabres should get? RADKO GUDAS is at the top of my list. He would be a perfect addition to play next to Owen Power on the second pairing. RADKO GUDAS, he's a veteran. He's got great playoff experience. He's physical. He's burly. He's a defensive defenseman. So that would give Owen Power the power. Get it? See? Nice pun, right? He would give Owen Power the power to go forward and to do whatever he wants, become a little more aggressive, become a little more offensive, while GUDAS stays back and plays much like how Mattias Samuelsson would play. Physical, he sits back, he's very good, high IQ in his own defensive zone. And RADKO GUDAS, his current cap hit is $2.5 million. Now, he is aged 34, so if he were to sign with Buffalo or any other team for that matter, it would be on a short-term deal, which is why I project him to go at maybe 2 years, $6 million. That would be $3 million for GUDAS per season. And that's all because that's factoring in his age, his offensive production from last season where he had 17 points in 72 games. I expect that offensive total to take a step back. Not terrible, not as low as Mattias Samuelsson's offensive production has been, but not quite as high as that 17 points he hit this season with the Panthers. All right, let's keep moving on now. Our third target here, veteran goalie Cam Talbot. Now, this one is dependent on a couple of things. Number one, that the Sabres executive brass does not go with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or Eric Comrie as the main time back behind Devin Levi next season. A lot of Sabres fans, including myself, would much prefer the Sabres to get a veteran backup to help out UPO in times like this. Now, if they were to go that route, Cam Talbot, I don't think he's going to retire after this season. He did struggle mightily with the Ottawa Senators. Could not stop a beach ball, but he would be cheap. We know how he plays. He could come in and play 20 games this season, maybe 30, maybe 25, around that range. That gives Devin Levi enough time to rest in between his many, many starts. And this is all, once again, factoring in what I expect Devin Levi's workload to be next season, which is probably 60 games, 60 to 65 games on the heavy side. because the way they were playing Levi in the final month or so, that's a really good indicator. Now, for Talbot, he is 35 years old, so he's only going to get a 1-year deal at $2.5 million. That would be reasonable, I think, for a next contract for him. Let's keep on moving, folks. Let's talk about Luke Schenn, defenseman for Toronto. Now, there were rumors before he was traded from the Vancouver Canucks to the Toronto Maple Leafs that the Sabres were an interested party, that they were looking at Schenn and going, maybe he could fit in our defensive core. Well, the price was too steep at the deadline, and now with Toronto once again facing a cap crunch, the Sabres could be able to pounce on that. Luke Schenn, he was very good this past season. The veteran defenseman could, once again, go next to Owen Power on that second pairing, and it would be pretty solid, I think. Dahlin, Samuelsson, Owen Power, Luke Schenn. Luke Schenn, he's a short-term guy. We could wait for him to do his thing. We can also wait for a guy that maybe, hopefully, defenseman in the first round that we drafted, rise through the ranks and eventually be ready for the NHL right as Luke Schenn's next contract expires. Now, Luke Schenn, he was very good this past season. He had 22 points, 4 goals, 18 assists with the Canucks and the Maple Leafs combined, and that was in 70 games played. And with that in mind, I feel like Schenn's next contract could be in the range of 3 years, $12 million total, which is $4 million per season. That would seem reasonable. That would give the Sabres enough time not to rush anybody from the minor league. Now, I do worry that Luke Schenn's production could heavily fall off, which makes this deal not such a slam dunk for me, but another good fit on the back end. Now, let's move on, talk a little bit about another forward, and Derek Stepan, veteran center from the Carolina Hurricanes. He could be an option, and let me tell you why. I know this move is not exciting at all. He only scored 5 goals and had 11 points in 70-something games last year. That's not very good. What I do think, though, that the Sabres could do is that they could decide to walk away from current fourth-line center Tyson Jost this offseason. I don't agree with that. I loved Tyson Jost this past season. I thought he was an excellent waiver wire pickup for the Sabres, but for some reason, over the last month, he wasn't playing as much. Something in practice Don Granato did not like about his game. So Jost was sitting. That tells me that the Sabres could potentially decide to move on. And one option would be Stepan. He's only 32 years old, but the offensive production isn't necessarily there. Now, this is also dependent on if Girgensons and Okposo both return to the Sabres, which I also do believe will happen. That would give the Sabres a very leadership-centric, heavy veteran fourth line. These guys are all solid. They've been proven to be good on the fourth line. And for Stepan, I would only sign him to about a 1-year, maybe $1.5 million deal. So he would be low cost. You know what you're getting from him, and he would be not the most exciting pickup in the world, but he would be a good replacement if the Sabres do decide to move on from Tyson Jost. Now, my final pick here, I think this one is the most intriguing, and that is the right shot defenseman Scott Mayfield from the New York Islanders. Scott Mayfield, he's currently making $1.45 million this past season with the Isles. He is 30 years old, so he's not necessarily out of his prime just yet. Although, I will say, he's actually, with age, it seems as though his point production has been increasing. This past season, he had a career-high 24 points in 82 games played, 6 goals, 18 assists, a +8 +- tally. Now, because of that higher offensive production, he will cost a little bit more, which is why I have his next contract being somewhere in the region of 4 years, $18 million total, which is about $4.5 million per season. Now, is that out of Kevin Adams' price range? Maybe, but Scott Mayfield would be an excellent addition to pair once again with Owen Power. He would give the Sabres a lot of time to develop another youngster, and during that time, we could bring up once again, that potential defensive first-round draft pick from this year's draft. That would make the Sabres have a lot more options on the back end. Scott Mayfield, we know what we're getting with him too, just like a couple of other guys on this list, like Luke Schenn and RADKO GUDAS. He is a physical, burly, big, tough, physical hitter. I know I said physical like 3 times, but that is to drive the point that nobody could bully Owen Power when Scott Mayfield is on the ice. Not only can he score here and there, but he can also prove to be an effective bodyguard for our young potential Norris candidate defenseman in Power. So, folks, what did you think of that list? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think I should change it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And before you head on out, make sure to check this video out to the next of me. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe. Let's keep growing this community. I was Don, and this is Buffalo SportsCenter. Hope to see all of you in the next video. Peace out.